history. For this, we have with us Padmashri Shovana Narayan. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Shovana Narayan. She is a Kathak exponent, thinker and author. She stands out for two major reasons. Her ability to effectively perform two distinctive roles with ease and her capability to produce and direct international collaborative works. Much like her guru, Pandit Birju Maharaj, she is famous as both performer and a guru, and for making Kathak an internationally recognizable dance form. Her efforts to fuse Kathak with other major Western dance forms are exceptional. With her, we have an IAS officer for over 30 years, Mrs. Geetika Kalha. She has done extensive fieldwork in Northwest India to promote the revival, documentation of art and culture. With a background in history, she is now a writer and a consultant who specializes in rural tourism, museums and cultural interpretation. With her new book, Kathak Lok Temples, Tradition and History, she, along with Shovana Narayan ma'am, want people to learn the truth about Kathak. In conversation with them, we have Mrs. Ranjeeta Sahay. It's written Ranjeeta. Ranjeeta Sahay. She is an author of Sushmanjali series, a poetpreneur, certified life coach, blogger, international poetess, and Mrs. India Delhi NCR, Mrs. Most Talented 2018. I would hereby request you all to please unfold the conversation.
Thank you so much. Welcome all. Hello ma'am. बरसों से जो विचलित थे उनके त्याग को सम्मान मिले। मंदिर में कथक और उनकी भक्ति से सियावर राम मिले। संतों की पावन नगरी में कथक लोक को खोया स्वाभिमान मिले। सदियों से चलती आई परंपरा को फिर वही गर्व और नाम मिले। Thank you so much, and feeling so honored to talk about this marvelous book Kathak Lok with Shovana ji and Geetika ji. Welcome to Bhopal. After reading this book, आपकी book मैंने पढ़ी और wonderful book, and my ideas, my narrative related to Kathak, everything changed. 7 years of extensive research to know about existence of Kathak village. I have never heard about this word, Kathak village, and Kathak Lok. How it all started?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers and Mr. Raghav Chandra for inviting us and making us part of this beautiful literature festival, and has given us the opportunity to listen to fabulous discussions. Thank you very much indeed. And about the journey, actually the journey did not begin 7 years ago. Okay. For me, it began long time ago, 2003. Sabse pehle to, everybody will be thinking that Kathak Lok, what the hell does it mean? And actually when in 2003, when I was performing in the Bodh Gaya festival, a journalist asked me whether I would go to the Kathak village. And that sort of set me wondering. Next trip I did go, which was a month later, found 3 villages, okay. Which was near Gaya, Kathak Bigha and 2 Kathak Grams. Took photographs, came back to Delhi, all excited, showed it to everyone in all walks of life, but predictably, no one believed it. They even refused to acknowledge the photographic evidences. So, but I kept on talking about it, except 2 persons. And then much later, in 2014, when I was looking at the census of India, then I found there were many Kathak villages with village codes. And that set, sort of, then I sat up, rang up Ministry of Culture, got, they also sat up, and that set me on my journey. And somewhere along the way, I was lucky for her that she joined me on the journey. And so that is how we found. And in the census code, we have about 8 to 10 villages with village census codes.
Okay.
And so, and today I found that there are, though at that point of time, we kept on finding more and more. But as of date, today there are about 21 villages.
Shovana ji, I want to ask, like Geetika ji joined you. She's a historian. आप dancer हैं, Kathak dancer.
Incidentally, my interest in history has always been there.
Yeah.
I've been, otherwise, because it was, the word Kathak first had intrigued me in the way back in the late 70s. I had talked about it and then found it. Then I went into all the museums, saw the sculptures, so did research on that. Then I did research. So history has been.
That's what I am saying कि you are like a dancer. तो आपकी curiosity समझ आती है. I want to ask Geetika ji कि how you joined and what urged you to be with Shovana ji.
Actually, like she was saying, she found the villages and she was telling everybody that there are these villages and, we should find research in it, but nobody was sort of taking the bait from her. And I had just retired and we were on a trip together to go for a meeting on setting up a museum. And there she started telling me about this and she said, will you join me for research on this Kathak villages? So I said, wonderful. I mean, there's something to do, after retirement. So I said, great, wonderful, I will come with you. And so we set up the whole tour of UP and Bihar and everything, and then we started traveling. And even then, there was no this thing about writing a book or anything. I was there just to tag along kind of a thing. But then as we go in, we in the seeing revenue records, talking to people, talking to the Patwaris, talking to all that, and seeing all that was happening. And then she said, would you join me in writing the book? So I said, are you sure? Because it's this thing. So she said, yes, we'll write it together. So that's how it began. And then we wrote it together. And she had done already so much research. And I joined in with some more research. And we went from UP and Bihar, then we went to Rajasthan.
7,000 kilometers.
Yeah, then
you all have traveled.
And the best part of the book was not the book, what came out was the fun that we had.
Okay.
That we can't write about. I'm sorry.
But at this point, I would like to say that when we thought about publishing the book, we went first, approached a very well-known publisher.
Okay.
Didn't bite. I said, oh, we only take, the usual taglines. And, but then when I spoke to Renu, and then she had faith in us. Thank you, Renu. Thank you for having faith in us.
Thanks, Renu ji, because this book is something which everyone should read. Such a detailed study. मैं इसको देख रही थी, एक-एक आपने notification से लेके villages के नाम इतना जाना, इतनी गहराई तक जाना और इसको अपने पैशन को लेकर आप दोनों के जज्बे को सलाम है. और मेरी 2 पंक्तियां आप दोनों के लिए. जब कर्म हर बाधा से खास हो जाए, ज़माने को भी इसका आभास हो जाए. तो on your journey to find Kathak village, traveling 7,000 kilometers, you came across Kathaks doing Nritya Seva. Your description about Pandit Ayodhya Sharan Mishra and many more Kathaks performing live on verses of Ramayana and watching them, the aura which you have described, both of you, वो क्या feel थी उनको जो authentic Kathak देखना और what will you say about that? Your experience.
When we find first of all, it's a big story. You'll have to read the book because then you'll know exactly where the curiosity and why
loopholes छोड़ते रहेंगे.
Why the two of us got excited when we said, aha, finally we're going to see some Kathak. So we thought we'd go there, watch for about 10 minutes, video it. This time we were very careful to video everything and photograph everything, etc., so that nobody says it. You know, the documentary proofs are there. And but you know, the moment we sat down, and the only part is, in the beginning, we got engrossed, both of us, at least that we got engrossed in how he was doing, narrating the story and telling it. And this was exactly what was described in chapter 1 of the Natya Shastra. Ki kis tarah se, the purpose, the vision and mission of the performing arts. Natya is everything together. And where that was exactly what he was doing. And that was to give values to the people. Now the beautiful way in which he was talking to people, and at the same time singing. They were fabulous singers. Singing, and then the rhythmic part of it. Because the Shehri Kathak is more of rhythm. But this part was just a minimal to support it. So that was something very beautiful, and we got engrossed in that, the Kathanak. That is why Kathak kehla rahe. That is why they are called the Kathak community. So we had to even study the entire sociological thing, that which social order, what happens, their position in society. So that is a big study then that came through. The only part in the beginning, I was saying, ooh, हाथ सीधा कर लो, जरा ये कर लो, you know, like a good Kathak dance है, you know, कि क्या अरे यार ये थोड़ा सा bending यहाँ होता है, ये हाथ ठीक है, ये करो. Then this one says, अरे चुप. You know? So then, but I was just muttering in the beginning. After that initial muttering, we lost ourselves and we stayed there for more than an hour.
वो देखना, वो feel, जैसे आप खुद भी करते हैं. गीतिका जी आपको कैसा, यानी होपफुली, क्योंकि आपने लिखा है कि आपको भी समझ आ रहा था कि वो क्या भाव बोल रहे थे, वो कौन सी कहानी सुना रहे थे, तो वो ऑरा क्या था, यानी बहुत खूबसूरत आप लोगों ने इसको डिस्क्राइब किया है बुक में.
I'll just take you back a little bit, so to give the perspective to the audience. When we were going to the villages, wherever we would go, people would know that there's a Kathak community, that there is a Brahmins who are called Kathaks. तो वो हम पूछते थे कहाँ है वो क्या है. Then, but only in 1 or 2 villages we actually found them, and then we were told that they would be in. You would be able to see them perform in Ayodhya. So that is where Shovana is talking about. We went to Ayodhya, and the first person that we saw, a Kathak Brahmin performing in a village, was a man called Ayodhya, and she's described how it is. Now, as for me understanding it, I mean, by the way, I have seen Kathak performances before, so I could understand. But it was, the audience comprised of children, women, men, and they were already in a temple, so the bhav was already there. And the way he sang, and the way he, involved the people, everybody was involved. And that actually tells you how the story of Ramayana and Mahabharata and all the rest of it, how it is so popular and well known in our country. Because it is sung in villages, in temples, on a daily basis. So they take up some small incident and they sing it and then they explain it, which Kathaks now in the theatres are also doing, especially the senior Kathaks like Shovana do it. They tell you not only the surface meaning, but also the deeper meaning of it. And that is the beauty of this whole thing, and it's totally fascinating. Nobody claps, nobody does all that, they just watch in silence. And it is it's a beautiful experience. We recommend it to all of you after reading our book.
For example, the word, there's one shlok, in which he says, I'm taking up that shlok. Yeah. He says, why is Ayodhya Puri the most pavan? The most pavan. क्योंकि पावन वो पूरा वो श्लोक जो है रामचरितमानस में. And then he's talking about, he said there is a Dwarka Puri, there is a this Somnath Puri, there's this Puri, there's that Puri, but why is it only that the Pavan Shabd has been used for Ayodhya Puri? And that is, he says, because nowhere else the deity in their human form was born. It is only in Ayodhya that he was born. So therefore it makes it the most pavan. Now these are little things, but how he was approaching it and telling it to the people. Incidentally, I would also like to say that the Kathak community, when we are talking about the Kathak community, they have always been there. Because even the Mahabharat, the Adi Parv, that was talks about it in the Adi Parv section of the Mahabharat. Kathakasya Parirajan Shamnasya Vanaukasa Divya Khanani Ye Chapi Pathanti Madram Juja. Then there is this 4th century BC Prakrit.
I'm coming into that. वही आपका मैं वही मेरा अगला क्वेश्चन भी वही है. नृत्य धर्मम कथा काच देवलोकम. Prakrit text 4th BC and in 4th century, and inscription archive at Kameshwar in Mithila region. So many references you all found. What's कांता समेत उपदेश, उसके बारे में हमने अभी देखा. अभी आप महाभारत का रेफरेंस दे रहे थे, तो we would like to know the history. ये आप जैसे अभी बता रहे थे, तो वो कहाँ से हम आए हैं, और ये शब्द आपने जो अभी बताया महाभारत के उसमें भी था, तो प्लीज elaborate it a bit more.
I leave the Kanta Samit to you. Kanta Samit, I would leave it to her.
Fine.
But the other part of it, the history, the Prakrit inscriptions, these were not found during the course of this research. This was in the 90s.
Okay.
And this was, and the Kameshwar archives in Mithila. So that is where these fragments were found, and it talks about like Magga Sirsut Pakhe Nakhatte Vanan. I forget, it's a big one. Gangaye Mahanadiye Tate Sabvo Kathaka Bhingarnatenam Stuti Tisi Kayam Ehi Raya Adi Naho Bhavenam Pasai. यानी कि गंगा महानदी के तट पे सभी कथक श्रृंगार नृत्य कर रहे थे, स्तुति करते हुए, जैसे देख करके आदिनाथ भाव विभोर हो गए. So these were there, have been there. So this is 4th century BC. Now you've had this community talking about it, as I said, in the spirit of the Natya Shastra, giving values, and because those values reach straight to the heart, so that is why the 5th Ved was formed, yes. The Natya Ved, so that it reaches the people. And now I'll leave the Kanta Samit.
No, tell them about Mahabharata also.
Mahabharata, I've already said.
Actually, the history of Kathak starts, the recorded history is what Shovana has said on in an inscription on 4th century BC. Then in various shastras, various books, right from Mahabharata down till the 19th century, we have references to them one after the other of the Kathak community doing dance. Not doing dance, sorry, doing preaching dharma, not dance. They were not connected to dance as such till the 18th century. It is only in the 18th century that the Kathaks and the dance became like, the British came and said that they are dancers. Because till then in India there was only Natya, which was a combination of music, which is actually, Shovana should speak about this, music, dance, instruments and both. So this separation of art started, and so did the concept of Kathaks being dancers started. Now, but Kanta Samit Updesh, which she has asked, this was an eye-opener for us. Because when we saw Ayodhya perform, we went back and, we asked, what is this happening? What is these Brahmins are, dancing, doing Kathak in the middle of a temple? And ye tradition hai kya? So then these two Mahants were called, and they told us about. And they said, ki aap jante ho ki Kathak kya hai? So we said, Kathak, to, I mean, she's a guru, so what is there to jano, you know, I mean, you're sitting with a Kathak guru. And he said, nahi, Kathak Katha se hai. So we said, हाँ, Katha Kathak se hai. He said, आप जानते हो Katha क्या है? So he said, Katha का है, का meaning भगवान, था meaning उसको स्थापित करना. So जब भगवान को किसी के दिल और मन में स्थापित करते हैं आप, वो कथा है. So that is what really shook us. And then he said कि हिंदुस्तान में 3 किस्म की उपदेश हैं. There are 3 ways of doing this. One is the Ved Samit Updesh, which is done by Brahmins for Brahmins, where you just learn the mantras. You don't question, you don't do anything, you are just repeating the mantras. It is teacher to the taught, it's just that. The second is Sugrid Samit Updesh. Sugrid means dost. It is like Krishna and Arjun. Arjun can ask Krishna, he is talking Gita, he is giving you the highest philosophy, but yet his student can ask the question. That is the other kind of Updesh, which can be done even by a non-Brahmin but it has to be a learned person and a person who is ready to take that kind of philosophy. The third one is Kanta Samit Updesh. Now this is where Kanta means beautiful beloved. It means the beautiful beloved, which is also a reference to God, because God is beautiful, God is your beloved, and it is like talking to your lover. It is like talking to a beloved person. So it is this relationship which only a Kathak can do. And the persons who give this kind of Updesh, they sing, they dance, they emote, they boo, they do everything in Shingaras to be able to connect to God. So this is Kathak, and what they are doing is Kanta Samit Updesh. Would you like to add?
It also means that it reaches straight to the heart. That is why if it reaches here, it has a limit, it's something else. If it reaches in the intellectual way, it is different. But if it reaches straight to your heart and it touches your emotions, then it stays with you. And that is exactly what I was mentioning, that even the Natya Shastra from chapter 1 verses 7 to 14 talk about the vision and mission, that they should reach the people straight, it should reach their hearts. And that is what it talks about. And the mention of Kathaks, as she said, that we've had it historically. Later on, even in the 13th century text, Sangeet Ratnakar, that Kathaks were not listed as in the list of entertainers. They were in a separate list, where they occupied a very high position. So in the seating protocols also were accordingly, which showed that they were held in high esteem. That is in the Sangeet
And they
Ratnakar.
used to get jagirs and everything.
And they later on they got jagirs, and then the census was conducted by the British.
There only I am coming. कथक की जिस तरह सब कहानी सुन रहे हैं, तो वी ऑल कैन अंडरस्टैंड कि कितनी पायस और डिवोशनल कथक्स वर. आजमाना चाहता था तूफान उस पेड़ को, सिरे से सतह तक झकझोर दिया मगर तोड़ नहीं पाया. In 18th and 19th century, the wrong portrayal of Kathaks in William Crook's census. Then again, rumors of Middle East Islamic influence.
Did you see the wrong portrait?
Yeah. हाँ, वो entertainers they no. Then again, rumors of Middle East Islamic influence tarnished the image and reputation. Why it was done and how it affected the sacred and temple tradition.
Well, when you're talking about the colonial period, the British, for the first time in that period, when the census was conducted, Kathak became part of the census, the Kathak community. Now, so in that, the dancers and musicians, yes, they became part of that. But it was also mentioned that they are Brahmins. Yeah. And their gotra and their this thing ki ye aap kaun se gotra ke hain, and all that has been mentioned. So those details, but that they were religious dances, that they were temples. So that has been clearly there, but still their categorization comes under the list of dancers and musicians along with others. And similarly, later on, after that it becomes that we are more familiar with that the last 200, 300 years. Now, how does Kathak come into the courts? And because now, when you're talking about the courts also, we had 16th century was quite a pot-boiling period, because it was at that time when Bhakti movement was at its height. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and others, and Vrindavan was being re-established. The Vrindavan of that time. So now the Vrindavan Ras Leela, that had to take place. So now what happened at that time? That how was it done? Because उस पुराने चीज़ों की फिर अवतरित करना है, उनको साकार करना है, तो कैसे करें? Through dance plays. So now the verses were there. Now, according to one from the lineage of Radha Raman temple, Swami Srivats Goswami, he said that the Akbar, that Mia Tansen provided the music. Yes. And it was a Kathak by the name of Ballabh Kathak who came and did the first choreography. Now the question was, we have a Vallabhacharya and there's a Ballabh Kathak. So for me it was, are they the same? Are we talking about the same? Vallabhacharya was not known to be a dancer in that sense of the word, like a Kathak, though he danced. So, but we found that they were two different, distinct identities. And the period was also different. From there, in the 18th, 19th century, Nawab Wajid Ali Shah was personally interested in the arts, fine arts. And in his darbar, he had given patronage to a lot of classical musicians and dancers, and to others. So the Maharaj family from Hadia Tehsil. So that from there on started that here was this introduction of the Mandir Kathak into the court. So some of them came over there, because you do have names of people migrating over there and getting patronage. There were many external reasons, famine tha, ye tha, permanent settlement tha, ye kehra. And then after that, then you had a new class of nouveau riche emerging. And that nouveau riche had different tastes.
Yes, मैं गीतिका जी से पूछना चाहूँगी, जैसा इन्होंने बताया उसी को हम कंटिन्यू करते हैं. द वर्ड तवायफ केम एंड देन फिर काफ़ी कुछ चेंज होने लग गया लोगों के परसेप्शन, तो प्लीज़ उस पर थोड़ा लाइट डालिए.
Actually, when the British in the 1800 and I think, I forget the date, 900, 1890 something, when they were going to renew the license for the East India Company to be able to function and to carry on the business in India, there was a big movement in UK demanding that if you are going to colonize all these black people, then you should also convert them to Christianity. This was the demand of the local people in UK. It is not just about money. You're not supposed to go there and make money. You're supposed to spread Christianity. So the government was forced to put this clause in the East India Company renewal lease that yes, you can continue working in India provided you you support and promote the missionary movement in India. Now that set off a completely new story here, because usse pehle to they were all here, they were doing their business and being friends like normal businessmen, traders and everything, but that then changed it, because then it also became important for them to spread Christianity. Now here were Kathaks and other who were actually spreading Ramayana and Mahabharata in the temples and telling people about all these things. And so how do you wean them off? So what they started doing was they started demonizing these people. कि ये देखो, ये तो जी नाचते हैं, ये तो तवाइफ्स के घर जाते हैं. And it is a fact that the Brahmins, the Kathak Brahmins, because they were the masters of the arts, all the performing arts and visual arts, they were the masters of those from centuries. A very senior tavaif or a very good dancer, who were called Ganikas earlier, because this goes back to BC. So ये गणिका के टाइम पे आ रही है ये, और वो सीखने इनके ही आते थे. ब्राह्मण सिर्फ दो चीजें कर सकते हैं, या तो पूजा कर सकते हैं या सिखा सकते हैं. They can only teach or they can preach. They cannot do any other activity. So teaching, they used to teach only to those women who were very talented and and this Ganikas and Tavaifs were also socially accepted. They were not the lower rung of women, which also sold their bodies. They were not those. They were the performers. They were the artists. So the Brahmins did teach them. But the British came and started saying, ye dekho ji, ye to, these are loose women, this, that. So the word Tavaif, which actually means a group. It doesn't mean a dancing girl. It's a Persian word which means a group. Now how it became Tavaif, we don't know. And so they started, the whole country began to go against the Devdasis in the south, the Tavaifs in the north, and this movement started, and Indians also began to believe that ye to demons hain, ye to pata nahi kya hain, they are ruining our religion, they are, so the whole narrative, the British changed our thinking, they changed our language, they changed, then apart from that, even economic factors like Shovana mentioned, there were famines all over. 60 million people died. There was the Spanish plague, which came after the World War, in which God knows how many, 17 million or some odd people like that died. And then there was a permanent settlement in which all the landlords were changed. So then, like she said, new elite came up, and everybody wanted to become slowly more and more like the British, and British, they don't have dancers. I mean, they to apne aap hi dance karte hain, wo sab log. So we had no concept of men and women dancing around in their homes, So here you went and saw a Brahmin in the temple or something. So this whole thing, I mean, this is a very long 3-4 chapters on this, how a very beautiful concept of narrative theology. If you, I don't know, heard this word, narrative theology is now very popular in the West because they've realized that if you want to talk about God, the only way to talk about Him through stories, through music, and now churches are having music, churches are having this thing. So narrative theology is now picking up in the West, whereas we had it many centuries ago. But the British came and spoiled this entire system, and it has not yet recovered. Most of us still believe that Kathak is a dance of the Tavaifs, And it is unfortunate that we do not really know the truth. This book, as Dr. B.N. Goswami has said, which means a lot to me, he said this book tells the truth.
एंड मोर हम आपने बॉलीवुड का भी बड़ा जिक्र किया है अपनी बुक में, तो जो गाने एंड ऑल दैट, द पोर्ट्रेयल ऑफ कथक, तो व्हाट अबाउट दैट? मैं
इसके लिए एक वाक्य मेरे साथ जो हुआ है, प्लीज. 1967, आई कैन इवन कोट द ईयर. We were living in Bharti Nagar, and Lachu Maharaji, it suddenly, let me cut a long story short, it became a jamghat of artists, and the non-artists were only Mr. and Mrs. Narayan and the two young girls, the two daughters, namely me and my younger sister, that's all. And Siddheshri Devi, she was coming, then they forgot all about us, and then the hasi mazak started amongst themselves, and they kept on telling Siddheshri Amma, "Are gao na, zara bhav karo na, bada bhav karo na." Then she would say, "Are na ho," and then say, "Are karo na, tum to hamare ghar ki shagird ho." So now I heard this ghar ki shagird ho. Now, Birju Maharaji there, Lachu Maharaji had come from Bombay, so he was the one who said it. Well, then she did something, and she did a beautiful Abhinay piece. You know, she sang a Thumri and just a beautiful Abhinay piece. And then a few days later, I asked her, I said, Amma, तो आप उनके घर की शागिर्द थी? हाँ बेटा, हम जाते थे सीखने के लिए. तो मैंने कहा, तब तो आप कथक डांसर कहलाएंगी. She immediately stopped me. She says, don't call me a Kathak dancer. So I said, but then you went over there to learn. And they said, कि आप तो घर की शागिर्द हैं. So he says, yeah, we all went to learn, to embellish our singing with moods and emotions, to understand the moods and emotions, the abhinay involved, the, how do you delineate, what is it? One is of course that you एकदम एक भीन भी जाता है, but she said that was just to add dimension and more depth to our main thing. So she said, don't call me a Kathak dancer. Today, everybody is a Kathak dancer.
That's my question.
I think don't call me a Kathak because the Kathaks were much superior to them. Not because don't call me a Kathak because they are this thing. Because the Kathaks were considered Brahmins of a very high order. And Sudeshvi Devi could never call herself a Kathak. They were her gurus.
In fact,
that is the difference.
In fact, in Sant Kabir Nagar, one gentleman who is known as Pandit Abdul Hamid Shastri. Please note the name. Pandit Abdul Hamid Shastri. Now, why is he? He's got a Pandit and a Shastri and an Abdul Hamid. He is an Islamic by faith person who has learnt Kathak, who used to perform Kathak, but he's a great scholar of Ramayana and Ramcharitmanas. And he's been representing India in other Ramayana festivals also. And so he's been, people have given him the honorific thing of Pandit Abdul. Now when he was talking, he said, only because all these people who belong to the Kathak community, everybody could be a Brahmin, but they are not Kathaks. So it is only those born in the Kathak community who do that, from generation after generation, they are the ones who can be called Kathak because they belong to Kathak. It's like agar मैं कहूँ कि मैं लोहार हूँ, but I don't come from a Lohar family, that way. So I'm not a Lohar. So it is that, and he says, you and I will be, he's looking at me and telling me also, you and I will be called Nartak or Nartaki ya Nat ya Nati. So that was, the ethics and the kind of respect they had for this community. In fact, in certain villages, they referred to them as Jati. Then, of course, when we told my Guru Birju Maharaj ji, he said, हमें जाति मत बोलो, हम लोग community हैं, लेकिन जाति हमारा तो वही है, वो चारों जाति में ही है. So
amazing. So I was talking about Bollywood. उसका answer Geetika ji.
Bollywood is only to this extent that unfortunately Mughal-e-Azam was such a hit. And so after that it became Kathak to Mughal-e-Azam में ही होता है, तो अब मुगल कोर्ट में ही होता है, वो तो हो ही नहीं सकता कहीं और, and so that narrative is so deep rooted in India now. Even later, there was a show right now, I think a musical in Delhi, very popular, and it went all over India. Again, it was all just whirling and twirling and doing brahmari and and again उसको कथक बोल के और वो मुगल कोर्ट में बन गया. So ये मुगल कोर्ट and कथक got linked thanks to Bollywood. हमने पूरी रिसर्च कर ली क्योंकि मैंने शोभना को पूछा, मैंने कहा ये पर मुगल कोर्ट में तो है ही है, हम तो जब से we are born we are being told कि it's a Mughal dance, it's a Mughal dance. तो ये we have to find this out, otherwise we can't write this book. Otherwise, we researched and researched and researched. Not a single paper has been written on this to say that how is it a Mughal dance, or what is the connection between any Persian, Arabic, whatever that Middle East dance to this dance. कोई एक शब्द नहीं लिखा, कोई ही नहीं हमें मिला। फिर जी हमने खुद ही करा कि हम खुद ही करते हैं।
So 16th century के नर्तन निर्णय में है कि जक्काड़ी है,
वो आ रहे हैं उस पे। हाँ, so then we because I have with me the great Kathak Guru, we decided to examine the dance in detail, you know, so every aspect of this dance was studied. कि भी ये है, ये कहीं मुगल तो नहीं है, ये मिडिल ईस्ट तो नहीं है, अच्छा ये है, ये तो नहीं मिडिल ईस्ट है, ये तो अच्छा ये कहाँ का है, कब का है, हमारी कोई शास्त्र में लिखा है, और पूरे हमारे शास्त्र के अनुसार आज तक कथक हो रहा है।
988
and no influence at all, except I let you talk about Jakadi. एक जकाडी का रेफरेंस है जो
वो that Jakadi is from the 16th century book Nartan Nirnay, and where it says now the commentaries on it, sorry, there it doesn't talk about Kathak or something, but the commentaries by eminent scholars, dance historians have said perhaps it is linked to Kathak and things like that. So that is how, so there are 3 or 4 verses, verse number 630 to 640 or something like that, or maybe 10 verses later, and where they're just talking about, they do footwork that they seem to glide, and they are very graceful in their movement. And now every dance form is graceful in their movement. Every dance form within India and outside India, they're all graceful. They all seem to glide. Even a waltz seems to glide. When you're waltzing, you're gliding. So they seem to glide. Then, no, it does not glide, but when we are, अगर हम चाल कर रहे हैं तो it depends on कि चाल है कि क्या है. वैसे तो our emphasis on footwork, and now so we examined all these aspects and we found it so universal that it could apply to anything and everything, including some of our folks.
आपने कपड़ों का भी बताया, आपने movements भी बताए, आपने सब ढूंढ के निकाला. And there are evidences in this book, and I would ask everybody कि you go through it, एक detail from 4th century, और वो सब कपड़े यानी जो आपने चूड़ीदार भी बताया, that also exist.
देखिए आप लोग अभी एक इस सेशन के पहले आपने अलबरूनी का नाम सुना था, या एक डेढ़, हाँ, तो आप if somebody wants to, you know, we are so used to seeing a standing temple and then looking at the murtis over there and saying, wow, so this is ancient because it's standing. But what about those temples which have been destroyed and which are lying in museums? And so actually one of the richest thing is in Patna Museum. And in Patna Museum, you have 3rd century before Christ sculptures. Now, importance, why I'm stressing on the importance, is that these are 3-dimensional. They are standing. The others are friezes. This is a frieze sculpted out, so you don't know what is behind. Even the Didarganj ki Yakshi, if you see it like that, you will feel कि वो पीछे तो वो धोती वाली साड़ी पहनी होगी, but actually she is a 6 foot tall sculpture. You see her from behind, she's 3-dimensional. No dhoti wali sari, this is like us, what we are wearing. Similarly, you will find 2 foot की sculpture है, 3-dimensional. She is wearing a tight fitting pajama and she seems to be taking a brahmari, chakkar, because her lower part of the skirt is flared out. अब हम कथक डांसर्स का तो आप जब हम ये अनारकली पहनते तो वो it all flares out. So exactly the same, and at that point of time, Indian Express in '94 had published a thing on the first page of my duet trio with the Spanish flamenco and and Western classical ballet dancer, and I was in that state, and exactly the same, I had to go begging to the photographer, photograph, de do, please, and then that photograph, you just cut off my arms and place it next to this photograph from Patna Museum, it's exactly the same.
Awesome.
Exactly same. And similarly, there are many other sculptures. So, and then then I'm jumping 1300 years, coming to Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni, when he's talking about the costumes of Hindu India, then he's talking about, he's describing something which looks like it could be either a very gheredar lehenga or it could be a very gheredar shalwar. It could be either of the two. Because it's not so specific. But he's talking the word trousers. So now unke liye ye bhi trouser hi hai. And then his description of the dhoti is fabulous. Then he says they wear kurtakas, which are below the waist, yes, and which have slits on the side, and they take a chadar on top. Dupatta is also, and they take a chadar on top. S नीचे वो diacritic mark IDAR.
और सबसे अच्छी चीज़ आपकी किताब में है कि जैसे आपने एविडेंस आप दे रहे हो आप जैसे म्यूजियम का, देन उसके साथ पैरेलल पिक्चर्स भी हैं कि दिस एग्जिस्ट. अबाउट घुंघरूज, दैट इज ऑल्सो किनकिनी.
That is also kinkini, और हम लोग जिस तरह से आप लोग सभी, everybody is familiar as to how we Kathaks wear ghungroos, 100, 200 on each ankle, and tied on a huge string, and it goes out round our ankle like a little snake twining itself around, and that's exactly what has been mentioned and described in the Abhinay Darpan. सुस्वरश्च सुरूपाश्च सूक्ष्म नक्षत्र देवता किंकण्या कान से रचिता एक उंगली का अंतरम बंधिनीय नील सूत्रेन ग्रंथिभिश्च दृढ़म पुनः शत द्वशतम. Now 100 to 200 नाट्योपाद्य कारणी.
I'd just like to say one thing, that you may note here that the Kathaks tie the ghungroos on a string, whereas the rest of India, like Bharatanatyam and others, tie their ghungru on a leather strap. Why do they do that? Because Kathaks are dancing in temples. So there is a difference there.
That is something very new.
So the others also dance in temple, but in the temple mandapa. Not in the. No, they are in the temple mandapas. The others are also temple, but in the temple mandapas, the Kathaks are virtually in the sancta sanctorum.
So amazing. और आप लोग ने इतनी मेहनत की है, 2 पंक्तियाँ मैं बोलना चाहूँगी. और 7 years लगाना, इतने साल लगाना, इतनी रिसर्च करना, ऑब्वियसली कई बार, हाँ वो तो थॉट एंड रिसर्च इज सिंस 7 years. थॉट तो जब से उन्होंने शुरू किया होगा तब से भी आता है. तो कई बहाने थे खुद को हारता देखने के, कई बहाने थे खुद को हारता देखने के, मगर वक्त और हालात के ऊपर आपने अपने इरादे रख दिए. थैंक यू सो मच.
हमारे यहाँ कहते हैं ना पंचपटिया, तो फिर उसमें काव्य रचना की एक है, तो ये काव्य रचना तो यहाँ खूब हो रही है.
थैंक यू सो मच. और सब आपसे इंस्पायर्ड है. सो वंडरफुल बुक एंड थैंक्स फॉर राइटिंग सच अ वंडरफुल बुक. एंड इसको आप लोग हिस्ट्री बुक्स में भी डलवाइए, क्योंकि बहुत ऐसे नोशंस हैं जो अभी क्लियर हुए हैं. एंड टू नो मोर रीड दिस बुक. थैंक यू सो मच. एनी क्वेश्चन, एनीबॉडी? हाँ, क्वेश्चंस प्लीज.
Hello, Shovana ma'am, Geetika ma'am. It's my privilege. I would like to acknowledge your presence here and that I'm able to attend this session. My question is, and pardon me if I'm deviating from the topic of Kathak, but as the book is on like how the history of Kathak is, it is a narrative theology. Ma'am just used these terms. Do you also have any idea about other dance forms that exist or that are originated from India or from southern parts of India like Bharatnatyam, Kuchipudi or other, who might also share a similar kind of story or history? If you have any idea, we would. Yeah. My name is Pratyaksha.
No, definitely. In fact, all our dance forms have originated in the temples, all of them. So make no mistake about it. Except that we were talking about the Kathak community, but no other community has been mentioned in our ancient epics except the Kathak community. Okay. Then, for example, Kuchipudi. You have a Kuchipudi village. So that's from where you had Siddhendra Yogi in the 17th century who developed Kuchipudi as we know today. It was a dance drama. And then the Bharatnatyam, actually it was Dasiyattam. It was not Bharatnatyam. Bharatnatyam, the name was given only in the 1930s. So it is in another 10, 15 years time, then it will be a century old. Because the earlier name was Dasiyattam. And Shilpadikaram, the great Tamil epic by Ilango, there's in our ancient India, we are always so hesitant about our dating. Some say it is so many century, but the most popular dating, I'm saying, is 5th century. That is the most popular. It could be 3rd century AD, it could be 5th century AD. But there, the main protagonist is not a Devadasi. The main protagonist is called Madhavi, and she is a Ganika. But who knew the art of dance. Now, even in northern India during Buddha's time, you know of Amrapali. She was a Ganika and she was a soloist. And she knew the art of dance. She was skilled in solo dance. Obviously, she had learned from an acharya. So if you now, these are collaterals that you are looking at, because later in the Maurya period, when you're reading Arthashastra, then in the Arthashastra, it's mentioned that the skilled teachers have to teach the Ganikas the art of music, dancing, etc. So you have all in Satriya, actually Hotriya in Assam. It originated in the monasteries called the Satras in Assam. So these are all well known. The Maharis were temple dancers of Odisha. The Gotipuas were young boy dancers who were doing basically the Gita Govind. So today's Odissi was created, is a mixture of the two streams, and it was named by the Jayantika group in 1955. So we have enough, from the 19th, 20th century, we have a lot of material in all the dance forms. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
At the end, I would like to thank once again the Bhopal Literature Festival team led by Raghav Chandraji, founded by him. And thank you for being a great, what do you say? Host. But I would also like to thank Geetika for having faith in me and for joining me in that journey, and we become partners. I can't say crime. We did a good crime.
Powerful partners. Thank you so much, Shovana ji. Thank you so much, Geetika ji.
Thank you so much, ladies. We were really elated to have you with us today. Now, may I please request Rima Huja ma'am to please come forward and felicitate the author, discussant with a memento as a symbol of our love, respect and gratitude.
It's been a pleasure to have all of you on stage. I'm not sure which way round we go. Since Geetika ji is the center, you're all equal for us, and she's my sister.
The memento, ladies and gentlemen, is the mascot of Bhopal Literature and Art Festival.
दोनों को पकड़ाएंगे भी तीसरी अभी बाकी है आपको देते हैं मैम अब पहले आप लोग पहले आप प्लीज आई नोटिस ओके मैम रेडी सामने.
For the audience, our next session is titled as Chemical Khichdi, Hacking Mental Health by Aparna Parimal in conversation with Jyoti Pandey. So please be seated.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for honoring us with your presence.